very, very individualistic. But if I were to look back on my journey towards acceptance, first of all, I couldn't have done it without certain tools and support. And of course, being able to actually reframe the experience, being able to step out of it and not get carried away with the emotions. So one of the tools that helped me not get carried away with the emotions of that situation and the impact of being diagnosed is meditation, yoga. All of these mindful practices, I think, are so essential to our daily life. And you're sort of practicing yoga for maybe quite a few months, maybe a few years. You have a meditation practice, even 10-15 minutes every single day, and you don't even think about it for a while until you actually need it. So meditation helped me to gain perspective. So when fear was coming up, I would actually look at the fear and I would not get carried away with the fear. That was really important. Secondly, community, emotional support, reaching out to people. How do you get the help if you don't ask for it? And that was a big lesson for me. I ended up writing about my cancer diagnosis, chronicling it in a blog called The Yellow Diaries, and that went public. And I, of course, became one of the first Indian personalities to speak about a diagnosis like this publicly. And that was very scary, but at the end of the day, I received so much support from people that I honestly believe that's one of the reasons that I'm here today. So you put these two things together and it helps you to reframe the experience. So I was able to question, instead of getting sort of dragged down and spiraling into this question, why me, why is this happening, what is going to happen? I was able to actually wake up every morning and reframe my experience to say, what is this teaching me? This is not going to be easy at all, but what am I going to learn today? And also to find the humor in the day-to-day, which is dark humor, but it helped. So in my case, finding the right treatment seemed to be a very straightforward path, but it actually wasn't. Like everything in my life, it was also quite an adventure. The doctor who diagnosed me with multiple myeloma is not the doctor who treated me, and I'll explain why. While the treatment and the protocol is fairly straightforward, at the time when I was diagnosed in 2009, and it's a very serious blood cancer, of course, multiple myeloma, and I had to go through about 4 months of a combination of chemo and steroids, and then have a stem cell transplant. So that is a set protocol. However, I realized that I wanted to partner with a doctor who understood my needs on an emotional level, on a psychological level, who I felt was my cheerleader, who actually was invested in my healing. And I did not feel that about the doctor who diagnosed me, ironically. So I ended up getting a phone call from another doctor at that time, Dr. Galal. And I'll never forget it because I literally was diagnosed, and the next day I had this voicemail. And it was Dr. Galal, and he said, please come in, I've seen your blood test results and I'd like to have a conversation with you. So imagine sort of the, imagine the spirit of a doctor who's actually reaching out to a stranger because he believes you might have multiple myeloma, and therefore he wanted to actually check in with me. I mean, I think that is a real healer. That's the definition of a real healer. So I went in, walked into his office. I immediately felt at home. He was warm, he exuded warmth, he was very proactive. I told him, listen, doc, you're too late. I've already been diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And he said, listen, I promise you that if I'm your doctor, we will hit it with everything we have. We will cure you. And I needed to hear that in that moment. So that's the doctor that I went to, and I followed my protocol. But let me also say that healing doesn't end with the body. There is healing beyond the body. So I think psychological healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing is a path that I was pursuing, in fact, even before I was diagnosed with cancer. And now I pursue it with even more focus. Post, it's a really important part of my life, as well as looking at old traumas and releasing them. So first, let me say that before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was one of those very independent-minded people who would never ask for anything from anyone. It was just in my nature. It was also my habit and my behavior. Now, being diagnosed with cancer, you slowly come to the realization that you can't actually get through it alone. And even though I told a very small circle of people, I started realizing that what was I hiding from? Perhaps by opening up my diagnosis and sharing it with more and more people, number one, I could actually benefit people. Number two, I could actually benefit research for my cancer, which is called an orphan cancer. It's a small cancer and will benefit from a lot more attention. And number three, I will tap into this magic of community. And so it was cancer that broke me open and made me understand how important it is to ask for help. Also, how it's such a beautiful energy exchange, how I received energy from people as much as people thanked me for sharing my diagnosis publicly. I received so many blessings, so much support on an emotional level, on a psychological level, from people sharing their stories or simply saying, I know you can do it, I know you can go through it. And it was really critical, I think, to my healing, because as I said, I do think in the case of certain diseases, there is a factor of healing beyond the body. It's really important to have that emotional foundation from which you feel that you can really heal yourself. So an interesting byproduct of having been diagnosed with a serious cancer is you become a lot more fearless. You actually really literally don't sweat the small stuff, that's a famous saying. And what I mean is that it very quickly forces you to actually concentrate on what's important. And I'd rather concentrate on what's important and let what is irrelevant just fall away, as opposed to even consciously trying to cut that out. So that's happened for me. Cancer, in fact, has given me an entirely new life. This is like my 2.0 version of me. And in fact, now when I look back, I look at the fact that I got married after cancer, I had my kids after cancer, I wrote my book after cancer, and I've co-founded the Upside Space, which is really bringing together a convergence of all of my passions, my passion for art, and pushing forward the agenda, advancing the agenda for artists, bringing together tech, challenging myself. I don't think I could have done any of this if I had not been diagnosed with cancer, because I was so filled with art and with I couldn't have done any of this if I had not been diagnosed with cancer, because I was so filled with doubt, and the little things, the little inner obstacles would have kept me away. So that's the irony. I don't wake up every morning and think that, I'm a cancer survivor or I'm in remission. I don't necessarily think that. I do live a clean life. I want to be healthy, also for the sake of my kids, but also for myself, as I'm 51 now, and I want to keep going and be active. And, it's interesting because becoming healthy actually has its own impact. It's like a healthy addiction, you might say. And it's like a cumulative kind of effect. So in a weird way, I would never, ever, ever actually recommend this to anyone else, but cancer has given me a new